Good afternoon. Welcome into 3 and Out right here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Christian Gokel filling in just for a brief time for the one and only Kevin Thomas. Will be back shortly, but alongside BJ Bennett and Ben Troop here. Glad to have you alongside on this Wednesday afternoon. Got a lot to get to on the show today. I'm sure Kevin will run through all of this, but we're going to talk to David Waters from the Gators Breakdown. Florida kicking off their spring practice tomorrow afternoon. 15 practices, no spring game. Talked about that yesterday for the Gators. But again, a huge spring practice after you have to replace guys like Kyle Pitts, Kyle Trask, Kadarius Toney on that team. So again, we'll catch up with David Waters here in about 30 minutes. Also going to talk about the Hawks. It's been a rough go of it lately for the Atlanta Hawks. We'll dive into what has gone wrong and really, as wild as it is, not quite out of the playoff picture yet. And then just some wild comments from Dan Mullen in 2020. He kind of offered, an explanation, apology, context, something. We'll dive into Dan Mullen's comments about that as well. But guys, since Kevin isn't here and you're having to put in the backup quarterback here, I kind of want to carry over what we were talking about on second down. And Cody, we're kind of indoctrinating him into the weirdness of college football. We played for the I Want Some Dogs, Coastal Carolina sound on second down. If you guys need a refresher, Cody, I don't think there's a better way to start 3 and Out than I Want Some Dogs. So if you want to pull that back up, but just been one of the best press conferences of all time.
Trying to get our 2 boys ready to carry them to golf tournament for practice, right? 12 cats live across the road. Our door's open. Screen's broke. We need to get a new screen door, but the screen's broke. So you can come in through the screen, but you can't get back out of it. I turn and look, there's a little kitty cat in our kitchen. So I said, "What are you doing in here, little kitty cat?" By that time, the cat turns, tries to get back out. That screen won't go that way. Cat starts going, meow, all crazy. And I told our players, we need more dogs. Bo's barking in the back. I have to go shut Bo up. Mel's like, "What's going on?" I said, "There's a cat in the house." "Cat in the house?" I said, "Yeah, there's a cat in the house." So I told our players, I tried to let it out the front door. Meow, meow, the cat's still going crazy in there. And I told our players, you need to be more like a dog. We don't need a bunch of cats in here. Meow, looking in the mirror. Do I look good? I got my extra bands on. I got my other shoes on. Be a dog. We don't need no meows. We don't need no cats.
BJ, that's your family, right? That's another Bennett.
Yeah, that's my cousin. That's Coach Dave Bennett. You know, what's amazing about Coastal Carolina, and I know Coastal Carolina spring football practice is underway. They were one of the first teams around the country to have spring football. But what's amazing for Cody and everybody about Coastal Carolina is they've had 3 head coaches in their history. They're a relatively young program. Their first head coach was my cousin Dave Bennett, who was very successful. Coastal Carolina had a lot of success at the FCS level. Obviously, he has one of the great pressers of all time. Their second head coach was Joe Moglia. Joe Moglia founded like TD Ameritrade. Like, he's a Fortune 500 CEO. And now their third head coach is Jamie Chadwell, who had Coastal Carolina in the national top 15. So Coastal Carolina head coaches, man, got a little something for you.
Ben, please break down what he was trying to say, because I think for the casual observer, you have no idea what the hell he was talking about.
He was just, the great thing about it is, number one, you love being from the South because we are the greatest storytellers you ever seen. Like, instead of him just saying it's a cat, I like the fact that he's giving, like, this is what the cat was saying. But
what he thought there was a cat in the studio.
Yeah. Like, it is one of the best ones. But the thing about it is he's just talking about a mentality. Like, you hear the word dog. Now, if you a Georgia Bulldog, that's DAWG, but he's just talking about a mentality. Like, a lot of times, you think about a kitty cat, you think about something to where, real soft, like, doesn't, really, really, really unassuming. You want to be a dog from a standpoint of when I was when I was blessed enough to be able to work out in New Orleans before the draft, everybody in New Orleans, if they think you nice, they call you a dog. Like, you a dog, huh? Like, it becomes one of those things, Christian, to where, like, you want to be known as a dude that doesn't have anything nice about you. There is nothing to be liked about you but the fact that when I'm on that field, I have a killer instinct.
Also, I never say you're my cat. It's you are my dog.
Yeah, what is that? Yeah, think about this, though, Christian. Though, like, if I said, "Hey, that's my cat right there," that's just, who, Christian? Oh yeah, that's my cat right there. What? No, that's my dog. That's my homie. That's my ace. That's my right hand. And think about this too. Even if you don't know what the word dog means, you just got to Coach Carolina. Hey, Christian, man, I don't know what you do over here. We dogs out here. Even if you don't know what that means, you embrace that. Like, it may take you a little while to understand it, but what Christian, I mean, I'm just using you, but you would know what it is. But the thing is, what I appreciate about what it is instead of calling out one player, well, think about it, Christian. Instead of calling out one player to his face, huh?
Yeah, smart, loyal, ferocious when need be.
Well, hold on. I'm not talking about Sasha Fierce. Not the lovable. You know, I can't stay mad at you. I know you ate my shit.
If somebody broke into my house and they had a milk bone, I'm done. Like,
this is what I mean. This is what I mean about a dog mentality. There was a dude who was in the pool, and he is faking like he is drowning. His dog was like, "Oh hell no!" Dog jumps in the pool and pulls him out. Like, not on my. A dog means not on my watch.
There's some dogs being developed. Hopefully this spring. Really, I think crucial spring all over the country, because you saw teams. Cody and I were talking about this. Maybe one of the under talked about things in the 2020 season was the fact that Alabama, in a season where most everybody missed spring practice, you had a quarterback that had been there for 3 years, you had wide receivers that had been there for a while, you had an offensive coordinator that had been there for a while, so not a ton of turnover, not a lot of new install for Alabama in 2020. You really saw that play out in the season where that offense was clicking from week one. Crucial spring practices coming up all across the country. And again, Florida starting tomorrow. BJ mentioned Coastal Carolina already going, but we put some out, BJ, about the contenders that have crucial spring practices coming up. We mentioned Clemson, but they've had some guys that we have seen before in the past, right? They have a quarterback that's already started a couple games. They're hopefully getting a great wide receiver back. So Clemson's going to be Clemson. But I think a couple of the other teams are pretty interesting in here. Texas A&M, are they a one-hit wonder, right? They were the contenders in the SEC West last year. Do you think they have staying power? Because they have to replace Kellen Mond, who, in a system where you've had Johnny Manziel roll through, Kellen Mond might have been the consistently best quarterback we've seen at Texas A&M for a long time.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, every year in college football, you're going to lose some players to attrition to the next level if you're a program like Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Texas A&M. And I think, Ben, I don't know if you ever had a year at Florida where there was a clear question going into the spring and you got an answer, but spring at least gives you a hint or two, right? You at least get a feel for what you have. And I look at Texas A&M as a fascinating program because people don't talk about this. They finished in the top 5 last year. Like, they were right there knocking on the door of the college football playoff, and outside of the quarterback position, you lose Buddy Johnson, you lose a couple of offensive linemen, but for the most part, your playmakers return intact. You're going to be really good at the line of scrimmage. You have 2 all-SEC caliber tight ends in Jalen Weidermeyer and Baylor Cupp. You're looking at the quarterback position, and Haynes King might get the number 1 opportunity. Can you maximize that opportunity? Can you kind of affirm the hype that's around you in spring? Spring practice is fascinating. And I think in the NFL, when you have training camp, you pretty much know what you have. You're kind of just going through the motions and kind of getting into business mode. I think for college programs, even at places like, to a certain extent, Texas A&M, Florida, you have questions and you need some answers. And I know, Ben, for the Gators, Emory Jones, there's a difference in being the next in line and being the guy. So when you look at A&M, when you look at Florida, when you look at maybe the secondary battles at Georgia, these are questions where you're hoping to find some answers in a couple of weeks of spring ball.
And Ben, I was going to say that Emory Jones, I don't think he's really got a fair shake at Florida yet, right? People want to critique him off the limited action you've seen, but Cody and I were talking about this. It's so hard to come in during the middle of a battle and be asked to throw one pass and then come back out to the sideline. But he's got a tall task ahead of him because he's not going to have Grimes, he's not going to have Kyle Pitts, and he's not going to have Tony out there to throw to. But I still don't think we've had a chance to see the best of him.
Yeah, and the thing about Emory Jones is too, though, what a lot of people don't get is, can he have like a Mac Jones type performance? Because and I'm not comparing Felipe and Kyle Trask, the Tula and Jalen Hurts, but these are 2 guys that were in front of him that he learned the game through, because Kyle Trask was behind Emory Jones and he just beat him out. Kyle Trask was not the number 2, he was the number 3 and became the number 2. If I'm Emory, what people forget about Emory, he is the guy that got recruited by Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen didn't recruit Trask or Felipe. And everybody kept saying, what type of quarterback does Dan Mullen do well with? A guy that has wheels and an arm. And the thing is, when he had Felipe, he said, I need a willing runner. With Kyle Trask, you'll take what you can get. Well, I think Emory Jones is more than a willing runner, but the difference is Emory Jones is going to need a running game because every time you are running quarterback, you are susceptible to getting hurt every time you pull it down. And what I like the most about Emory Jones is real similar to going to where I became like a starter. There are no excuses for us. It's so easy. It's like if I come in with a slate of great players that was in front of me, oh, Ben, you just falling in line. Well, all of them are gone. I know Gamble and Zipper and Eric Armstead and those guys. They coming back at the tight end position.
Gilbert.
So you got some players. But the thing is too, though, Christian, you're at Florida. There are no. I do not care what you don't have. Nobody's gonna feel sorry for you. You got the younger brother of C.J. Henderson, Xavier Henderson. You got Jacob Copeland. You got two former 5-star running backs. Coming in. It's gonna come down to, can this offensive line block for the running game? Can the defense get back to fundamentals and getting lined up, not panicking? But I think Emory Jones, just like JT Daniels, just like Spencer Rattler, just like Sam Howell, you will always come down to, can your quarterback outperform the other quarterback every single week? And I just think that with Emory, this is the thing too. Unfortunately for Emory, because we get judged off the little highlight reels we go in, the little bits and pieces. I hope they give him. I hope it's patience, and I hope they don't judge him off the third game of the year, which is Alabama. We're gonna learn a lot about Emory Jones third game of the year.
I'm with you. And I think this is going to be a big season for Emory Jones. I mean, people forget Dan Mullen's responsible for the SEC's top two rushers in terms of quarterbacks all time. Man, why am I completely blanking on his name? We already talked about Nick Fitzgerald and Tim Tebow, 1-2 in the SEC. Dan Mullen responsible for both of those guys. But BJ, in the ACC, Clemson's number one far and away. I mean, you can pretty much already pencil them into the college football playoff, right? Sam Howell has to take that next step, right? He was the hotshot freshman setting all kinds of records. I'd say kind of regressed this season, but it's hard to blame anybody for that with as weird as 2020 was. But he's got to take that step now if he's going to become a truly elite quarterback.
What's interesting about North Carolina is they lose, two NFL running backs. They lose two NFL wide receivers, but they might be even better offensively because you're talking about Sam Howell entering his third year, as you mentioned. This is going to be hopefully a more traditional season in terms of preparation. North Carolina also returns all 5 starters to the offensive line, and that is something that gets lost in the fan hype sometimes, but it is such an important foundation for any quarterback. And SEC fans, you should know this name, Ty Chandler, who was a really good player for Tennessee at running back. He is transferred to North Carolina. So you have a veteran, productive running back. You have an offensive line that is going to be one of the best in the country. You have a quarterback that might be the face of college football. I think North Carolina is in a unique position to emerge as a viable, in the past, it's felt like we've kind of created a contender to Clemson that really hasn't been there. You've been like, oh man, Miami, maybe. I think North Carolina, if they can answer some questions on defense, they bring back Tamon Fox, who has over 20 career sacks along the defensive line. If they can find a playmaker or two at wide receiver, if they can clean up some things in the secondary, they could be a viable candidate to contend against Clemson. And it's been a while since we've had that.
And then quickly here, Ben, Georgia, they have talent on offense, right? They have guys all over the field, but as many guys as you have, you can only put 11 out there, right? You can only put a certain amount of wide receivers out there. You can only throw so many running backs out there. I think this is a huge spring practice, a huge 15 days for Todd Monken to figure out who that first group of guys that he's willing to go to battle with is.
I think if Georgia can do something that's going to be hard for any player to do, they got a shot to be really, really good. If they can focus on being great teammates, they got a shot to be a great team. Because you got a lot of alpha dogs, a lot. JT Daniels got to the party a little bit late, but obviously he's going to get the most ink in the paper because of the position that he plays. But you got a running back room that if they don't want to share the wealth, that could create a problem. You got a secondary that got a lot of questions. But once again, like you mentioned, Christian, you got a lot of talent, a lot. And I would say this. What does Georgia want to be this year? Because last year, it looked good to see Georgia throwing the ball up and down the field, but they was in games they shouldn't have been in because of that. People say, what does the run game do? Creates rhythm, creates
North Carolina game.
Exactly. So, well, not the debut. Not the debut. I ain't talking about the debut.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying too. If guys can put the stars next to their name to the side, if guys can say, "Look, man, do we want to be a great team or do we want to have great stats individually?" Because if we want to be a great team, we're willing to defer to each other. They can be very, very scary, Christian. Because the thing is, okay, you got your guy, and just like Emory, just like Sam Howell. Is JT Daniels really ready to be the guy? It's easy to come in and halfway during the season when everybody's saying Stetson ain't this and DeJuan ain't that. Well, now he's finna get a full off season with Dog Nation breathing down his neck, saying, "Hey JT, you taking us back? And we going, so because you inherit the good and the bad when you the starter, at quarterback." I just think it's going to come down to JT's mental psyche. It's going to come down to these 5 stars deferring, saying, "Look, man, I don't care nothing about that. I want to win games." And I will say this. If George Pickens ready to lead the pack at receivers in the SEC, if I'm George Pickens, I'm tired of hearing about everybody but me, because we talking about Justin Ross. George Pickens, his freshman year, I said, this dude is going to be, incredible. And he does have that ability. He going to get that shot this year, Christian, because somebody got to lead the pack at receiver. I hope it's him, because Kieras and those guys are good. If it's not him, I think that offense is going to definitely struggle.
Yeah, Jermaine Burton is going to be unbelievable. I think Arian Smith, dude who has incredible speed, like McCole Hardman-esque speed for Georgia in the slot. Kearis Jackson, as you mentioned. Oh, by the way, hopefully getting Dominic Blaylock, who I think was, in terms of George Pickens in his freshman year, the better receiver their freshman year. So just an embarrassment of riches for Georgia. Important spring practice coming up for all the contenders across college football. We'll come back. Kevin Thomas back in the building. We'll slide into the chair, take over for the remaining 2.5 hours here on 3 and Out. Christian Gokel, appreciate you guys listening along. We'll be right back.
It's 3 and out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. I'm here. That's about all I'll say. And we got plenty to get to here coming up this hour. David Waters, Gators Breakdown, will join us in just a little bit. But Dan Mullen was asked in a press conference about the future of college football. And I guess I'll read the whole quote here. It kind of goes around in circles, if you ask me. But he said, I'll address it this way. I think a lot of people are trying to figure out what the future of college football is going to hold and what that's going to look like going forward. I love being here at the University of Florida. I think we have a great program. We have a great fan base, great history, and the opportunity to be a championship program every single year. I think there are concerns with coaches regarding what the future of college football is going to look like. I think there's a lot of uncertainty that we're trying to figure out right now to see what our futures are going to hold, end quote. I don't know specifically what he is talking about there. I'm guessing paying of players. I don't know what significant other change might be on the forecast for college football in that way. But BJ and Ben, what say you?
In terms of player compensation, which has been a talking point, Kevin, for years, we've been talking about it for a long time. I struggle to understand kind of why that's viewed as such a negative thing from a lot of people, or a concerning thing, or a problematic thing, because every financial aspect of college football has progressed and progressed considerably over the years. If you're a fan, ticket prices, the donations you have to make to get into the stadium, the media contracts for television and radio, they have exploded. You think about coaching salaries. There's a really good story up on Banner Society about the evolution of coaching salaries. The average FBS head coach in 1998, which is not that long ago, made $417,000. Bob Stoops, in his first year at Oklahoma, and he's a college football Hall of Famer, and in this first year, he won a national championship, by the way. His salary at the beginning of the season was $700,000. Now, that would be about the lowest of any Division I FBS head coach, or would be down in the bottom tier. Coaches are making $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 million. As the money has impacted everything, including directly head coaches' salaries, coordinator salaries, assistant coach salaries. Why is it a bad thing for that money that has made everything else bigger and better? Why is it a bad thing for that money to be shared amongst the players as well?
Because Dan Mullen understands, just like Dabo Swinney understands, that the college of football is relatively hidden to the players, because you don't really get to see what really goes on behind the scenes, because you are the guy, you are the ones that's going out there. That's why when you look at everything that goes on around college football, they give you enough distractions that you really don't know what's going on. They give you are so structured that you don't get. And Dan Mullen knows this. Dan Mullen knows that I control everything now. Everything that goes on the college campus, I control. I'm the biggest name. I got the biggest voice. I got the biggest influence. And I get paid. Dan Mullen didn't even sign his 6-year deal when he first got to Florida. Well, until, maybe 2 months in when he first got to Florida. That's how much money these coaches make now. Jimbo Fisher signed a 10-year, $75 million fully guaranteed contract. Dabo Swinney signed a 10-year, $92 million. Yet, God forbid we give these players some money. That's going to ruin it. We don't know I think that's always crazy, because you're talking about something to where, BJ, we talk about Dabo Swinney and we never talk about what he benefited from. Dabo Swinney didn't do anything but call plays. He benefited from Deshaun and Trevor and Travis Etienne. Dan Mullen got an opportunity to come back to Florida because of Dak Prescott, and Nick Fitzgerald and those guys. But we act like they do it all. And I appreciate when Bruce Arians said, man, it's about these players. I ain't did nothing. I ain't went on the field one time. Think about it. I ain't went on the field one time. And I just think that what Dan Mullen is saying, a lot of coaches think like this. They think it is going to be crazy if these players started benefiting. As if to say you don't benefit. You are benefiting in a way that is hard to describe.
Ben, this is what I'm asking, and I value your perspective on this so much. Given that you went through it, but to reiterate, every single thing about college football has become bigger, more expensive, more profitable, more monetizable. Wouldn't it make sense? Isn't it just logical for some of that reciprocation, whether it's through likeness, whether it's through a stipend, whether it's through shared resources, isn't it logical, inevitable, and right for some of that to correspondingly be shared amongst the student athletes?
Yes, and it's common sense too. But the thing about it is, it always bothers me when people start saying things like, "Oh, well, they should be just happy to do this and happy to do that." My day begins when a student day ends. That's when my day begins if I'm an athlete. So when everybody else is going home, and I'm talking about staff and students, that's when my day begins. So when your last class at 1:30, I got to be in meetings at 2:00. I got to be on the field at 3:30. I get off the field at 5:45. I have to be at the training table by 6:30. I got tutoring at 7:30. I don't get home till 10:30, and that's Monday. All I'm saying is we are talking about pennies on the dollar. We're not even talking about millions of dollars, but they rather them not get anything because they think, well, look at what we giving them. The thing about it is, I valued my time at the University of Florida. I am very, very grateful for my time at the University of Florida, but I was very, very naive about what I actually did. And that is what used to work in a coach's favor. We didn't know what we was really doing. It's just business as usual, right? Why you think stadium's so big? 90,000. If they charge $1 a ticket, that's 90 grand every Saturday. They ain't charging no ticket, by the way. People go, well, they let the student section in. I just think, Kevin and BJ, this just goes back to we have an out of date problem. Like the thing that has happened in college football is the thing that has happened in life. When you think about life in general, some of these companies have generated so much wealth over time. Cost of living has gone up. Not people's average wages, not minimum wage. So that's what goes on in college football too. Hey, listen, keep them right there. That way they want, give them, go with Jumpman. Most of these kids love Jordan. Let's go with Jumpman. So we giving this and giving them that. Coach car is free. Coach cell phone is free. The only thing coach really pay for is a house. Well, we all have to pay for houses and things of that nature if we trying to buy a home. I just think that Dan Mullen, it's not disappointing, by the way. I knew this. See, people think Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney just said it first. All those coaches know they are. I'm gonna say this too. Oh, coaches already think players get too much. They won't come out. They we give them a whole bunch now. You don't give us anything. Like the Florida and Georgia Tech or Florida State. This is built in. And I just think that if you're talking about giving these players, and when I say players, I'm not just talking about the football team, people. Let me say that. I am talking about every student athlete. Because if I play football, I get to play American football. If I'm a gymnast, I could go be on the American team. I could be on Team America in the Olympics. But we all coming from the same place. So I just think that Kevin, at the end of the day, Dan Mullen just proved what I already knew. He's negotiated 2 contracts, and God forbid Emory Jones get $100. That's just too much.
We'll come back. We'll leave it there, and we'll come back. We'll talk about the Gators on the field. David Waters, Gators Breakdown. He will join us when we return. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Welcome back, 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Glad you were with us here on this Wednesday. A lot of schools getting ready to start spring practices out there as well as that opens up all the questions for what's to come here in 2021. Certainly Florida, no different in that respect. And joining us here from Gators Breakdown, David Waters steps in here on 3 and Out. David, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, guys. How about you?
Hey, doing fantastic. And certainly a lot of Florida's questions going to start there on offense. You lose Kyle Trask. We'll see where he goes in the draft. But is it now Emory Jones' time to shine, and is he ready for that spotlight?
Yeah, this spring that's gonna be a big determining factor for him. This would be the time where the transition is his team now, and this is the first time he'll get to be able to show those leadership qualities, and that's gonna be where it starts. But of course, you got to perform on the field as well. So, with him taking over at quarterback, it will be a big transition in the offense. You lose Kyle Pitts, you lose Kadarius Toney. You got a stable of running backs that now include 5-star running back DeMarcus Bowman. We'll see if he's eligible, but with more of a running style quarterback, he can throw it too. But with the use of his legs, Dan Mullen's got that history of being able to cater to quarterbacks and quarterbacks of Emory Jones type. So, the transition in offense will happen, and it'll be more of a run focused approach with a quarterback like Emory Jones and the stable of running backs that Florida has. So, I think that's a lot of they'll see what he can bring to the table as far as his leadership qualities, but also having to lean on a big stable of running backs that's going to help that transition in the offense.
I was going to say, David, watching Florida last year and the offense was remarkable. I mean, when you think about Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts and, Toney and Grimes and all those guys, but if Florida had a, first and goal at the 1 yard line, it seemed like they were going 4 wide and throwing a quick slant for a touchdown. I love watching Emory Jones throw the ball. I think he's got great touch on his downfield passes. But when you think about potentially, DeMarcus Bowman, Lorenzo Lingard, Naquan Wright potentially, and maybe a more veteran offensive line, could Florida go from being 11th or 12th, whatever they were last year in the SEC in rushing, to maybe being a top 5 rushing team in the SEC?
I think so. I mean, we saw Florida struggle running the ball, but they didn't necessarily, at the same time, they didn't necessarily make it an approach. We talked to Dan Mullen yesterday. He was like, look, it's hard pressed to take a Kyle Pitts off the field. It's hard pressed to take a Kadarius Toney off the field just to go get a running back a carry or something. You had a strength of the team that was your quarterback, that was Kyle Pitts, that was Kadarius Toney, Trevon Grimes, and even, the receivers that left the year before that. It wouldn't be a surprise to me, given Dan Mullen's history of a style of quarterback like Emory Jones or, Anthony Richardson at points of the season or points in the game as well. And this stable of running backs that you just mentioned, Bowman, Lingard, and Naquan Wright, but you still have Dameon Pierce. You still have Malik Davis. I mean, Florida is really, really deep at running back. So I think, this spring is big in how are you going to use all those guys? Is somebody like Wright and Davis, can they help in the slot at receiver, where Florida probably does need some help after losing some bodies there this past year? So it wouldn't be a surprise to me at all to see, even with the struggles up front in the offensive line, this is what John Hevesy, the offensive line coach, this is what he produces. This is what he's known for, is this run-heavy style approach. And I think that's what he knows how to coach more and coach better than the drop back and throw it 40 times a game for his offensive line. I think he knows how to coach this run attack a bit better. So it wouldn't be surprising to me at all to see an improvement up front and with the running backs in tandem to get this Florida run game going.
And David, and when you think about the run game and when you think about when Dan Mullen first got here, he was saying that when you talk about a quarterback in his offense, they don't got to be a great runner. They just got to be a willing runner. We look at Felipe Franks, he didn't recruit him. Kyle Trask didn't recruit him. I remember when he got Emory Jones, everybody was looking to see where he was going to go. How much more dangerous can this offense be when you add the running game, even if it's not great, to create balance with a guy like Emory Jones, for which I still think can go out there and make it happen with guys, like Copeland, like Whitmore, like Henderson, like Shorter. And that's not even before you get the Gamble and Zipper and them tight ends.
Yeah, Ben, I think that's the thing. If this run game gets going like I think it can, then it's going to leave a lot of one-on-one opportunities for these receivers and these tight ends. Just not forget Eric Gilbert, another 5-star tight end transfer from LSU. We'll see if he's eligible this year, but he won't take part in spring, of course. So I think Florida will try and figure out some things because they don't know if he's going to be eligible or not. So they'll figure out with Gamble and Zipperer there at tight end to maybe figure out what they have there at that position too, just in case Gilbert's not there. But I think if this run game, kind of going back to that point, if it works like I think it can, you're right. The passing lane's open, and this is going to be more than that willing runner. This is going to be a lot of design runs, a lot of making things up on the fly. The quarterback will drop back, but now he has his legs that can keep a linebacker to have to spy him, and then something else opens up in the middle of the field. A lot of just kind of freelancing out there is going to happen more so than we've seen the last couple of years with a quarterback like Emory Jones. So at least for this Gator offense, it's going to be less predictable. Even though you knew the pass was coming last year, it was still hard to stop. But this year, with the transition of an Emory Jones and how he can run the ball, there's going to be a lot more unpredictability with this Florida offense.
Talking with David Waters, Gators Breakdown. And David, you mentioned Eric Gilbert there potentially not eligible. What would the holdup be? Does he not get a free transfer there coming into the Gators program?
You don't know because they still have yet to the NCAA still yet to pass that one-time transfer rule. And, a lot of guys have been getting eligible after just 1 year, but you go and look at all the Cade May stuff between Georgia and Tennessee and how that took forever. And then with Gilbert, he's transferring in conference. He did play a lot last year. We'll see how they take the behind-the-scenes personal issues into account of him wanting to be closer to home. There were some things going on there at LSU where he needed to be closer to home. Now he transfers to Florida, and that's a school in Georgia would have been closer to home. So they'll have to weigh all that and see how that goes, and we'll see also in the coming months if the NCAA passes that one-time transfer rule, and then if it does, go ahead and kind of retroactively count for people who have put their name into the transfer portal even before then. So not out of the woods yet. I mean, I asked Mullen yesterday about DeMarcus Bowman. He's not been fully cleared yet. There's no word from the NCAA about him either. Didn't play as much as Gilbert did last year. Only played in about a game or so for Clemson. I think the thought there is he'll be fine to get eligible. He transferred back in October there from Clemson to Florida. So they did get the 2 5-star transfers, but we're still awaiting the final approval, the final word that those guys will be eligible in the fall.
Defensively, Florida was up and down at times last year, had some key guys turn down the NFL to come back. Could this unit be, quite frankly, a lot better in 2021?
They're going to have to be. That defense was the weak point for the team last year. You think you had even bit of an average defense, that takes Florida even further last year than the 4 losses that they suffered, mostly because of the defense. So you got some new transfers in. Daquan Newkirk from Auburn, Antonio Shelton from Penn State. He'll have a lot of experience there that Florida would need to plug in for Slayton and Campbell that left last year. So Florida needed some numbers at defensive tackle. They really hit that in the transfer portal with those 2 guys. They got to figure out something at linebacker. Ventrell Miller comes back, but besides him, they have Mahmoud Diabate and Amari Burney maybe playing out of position a bit. Diabate did come on a bit at the end of the year to look better. So I think you'll see Miller and Diabate there at linebacker. But the secondary, Tyre Elam returns, but you got a lot of new faces back there. And they'll be counting on some true freshmen, Jason Marshall, Corey Collier there from Miami Palmetto and from this last class. Both guys, 5 stars in the services out there. So be a lot of new faces on that secondary. You got 2 new coaches back there as well. A lot of communication issues last year. That's what the Gators have got to get figured out this spring. This spring will be a back to basics, I think, a lot for this defense because, tackling was an issue. Communication was an issue. Alignment was an issue. A lot of the basic things that, you didn't expect a third-year defense to have. So I think that there'll be a whole lot of simplicity getting back to basics this spring for the defense.
Trey Dean is a guy that when he came in, obviously, big time recruit. I mean, he went from the cornerback position to the slot position. Now he's at safety. Is this the year that he puts it all together? I can respect the guy that's willing to move to another position, get a little bigger because he's making it about the team and not about himself. You mentioned Tyre Elam. I think he's going to be a star this year, but I think it's going to come down to that safety position with a guy like Trey Dean. From what you've seen, last year, and obviously we going into the spring, is he ready to take on more of a star role and really more of a leadership role this year?
I think so, Ben, and he has to be. And like you said, he's played some different positions because he had to. This year, he plays. He'll be playing. He'll be playing his first year, with playing the previous year at that same position. This will be the second year in a row he's played safety. He's not getting moved around a whole lot anymore. Don't forget that, that big play he made in the SEC championship game. If he caught that interception and got popped on the return and fumbled to give the ball right back to Alabama in the red zone. But, he made a really good play on that interception. If he doesn't get hit the fumble, it was a blindside hit there, illegal hit, but blindside hit there, and he fumbles. That was the biggest play of the game for the defense for Florida. And if they don't turn that ball over, who knows how that game turned out a little bit different. But he came on at the end of the season. I think he got injured a bit in the middle of the year, and you can kind of see when he was getting healthy that he was probably a force right there and somebody they'll be counting on back there in that secondary to help those young guys. But yeah, I think him playing the same position for the second year in a row is going to go a long way. And look, safety is what he played in high school. He wanted to try corner because that's kind of where the money position for the NFL. But now he's more in his more natural position from high school at safety. His second year there, I think he'll be looked upon to bring a whole lot of leadership on that defense.
David Waters, Gators Breakdown, our guest here on 3 and Out. David, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Hey, guys, thank you much.
And again, a lot of questions there for Florida as they try to develop that offense. BJ and Ben, quickly, about 30 seconds. Are we going to be able to run the ball effectively, and who are going to be those new weapons on offense?
Ben, I think the Gators are going to run the ball really well. The offensive line's been a weak point. That group's better. And then I look at the rotation, not just one guy, but kind of like a Georgia, multiple guys in the offensive backfield. I'm excited to see what Florida can do on the ground this fall.
I am as well. I think it's time too, BJ. While they have had relative success, when you talk about being able to have 3 successful seasons, it's because of the fact that you had elite quarterback play. I don't think Emory Jones expected to be elite at his first year as a starter, but he's going to need that running game in order for him to have balance as a QB.
We've got more to come here on this Wednesday. It's 3 and Out. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We're streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. It is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you are with us here on the show. We got a lot to get to coming up next hour. Take 3 around the corner. Braves pitchers and catchers reporting today. The Hawks are embarrassingly bad. We'll talk about that coming up in hour 2 as well. As they've got the Celtics coming up on the road tonight as well. And plenty of college football talk still to come as well here on the show. So don't go anywhere. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. If you missed any portion of the show, you can go to ESPN Coastal, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and get a archive version of the show each and every day. So glad you are with us here on this Wednesday. But great talking college football, and certainly as you see the ramp up towards spring ball, a lot of folks looking to see who's going to be that next wave of playmakers that we see across this college football landscape.
Yeah, I'm excited for spring football. Just the storylines, the young players, the star players emerging. But as we wind down the hour, Kevin, I got to change the subject and just ask Ben a question because we've had some wet weather. It's been raining. When you want to start a backyard fire, but it's been raining and the wood is wet, what's the best kind of kindling? What's the best kind of wood to use to start a small backyard fire?
Oak. I mean, that's what I would use. I would go oak, maybe a nice cedar. Depending on what type of mood you're trying to set, Kevin will probably go cedar. He's a hopeless romantic. But for me, I'm going to go with oak. When you look at most of the fires that are started, oak is the least. I don't get a lot of redwood in this area. But I would go with oak, BJ. And I always go with the stones. Get you some stones, set aside an area. And remember, only you can prevent forest fires, but it's not only you can prevent backyard fires because we're not dealing with no forest at this point.
Looking sharp.
Maybe cedar, stay away from the redwood, and stay away from them backwoods too. I'm just saying.
The hat is looking extra choice today for Ben. So with that, we'll step aside. Hour 2 around the corner, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Welcome back. It's 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Glad you're with us. Plenty to get to here this hour. Braves pitchers and catchers report today. First full squad workout tomorrow. What does that squad look like? What is the bench going to look like here in 2021? We'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. And the Hawks and Celtics tonight. And the Hawks are having a rough go of it in a rough all the way around season in much of the Eastern Conference. So we'll get to that.
Is that how you describe the season so far? Woo!
It's probably more the pain sound. That's probably how most people would describe it as well. But in positive news, we're going to take 3 here on 3 and Out on this Wednesday. All right, fellas, take one. Which teams make the most sense for the Falcons to target as a trade back partner in the draft?
Yeah, I think there are a couple. First and foremost, never trade with anybody in your division ever. I know Carolina may be interested in acquiring a quarterback moving up. I know the Saints may be interested in acquiring. No, I don't care what they offer you. I think if you wanted to move back just a couple of spots, maybe Philadelphia could make sense, where who knows what they would give you to move up, two places if they felt like you were going to take a quarterback and they want a quarterback. I don't know how they feel about Jalen Hurts, but if they're at least in the market for a quarterback, as some of the mock drafts have kind of implied, maybe you could get something and move back and still get the defensive player you want. If you're looking for a larger haul, I think Chicago, who's kind of in a the 14 to 16 range, I think, in the first round, you could trade back, probably get a lot in return, and still get maybe a Patrick Surtain or a Caleb Fairley, maybe acquire a second-round pick, a future first-round pick. So I think teams that are in need of quarterback help, teams that are not in your division, and teams that are not so far back in the first round that you would lose value, I think Philadelphia and Chicago come to mind.
I mean, if Atlanta's going to trade back and they really, really want to try to get a trade partner, I'm going to go with a team that kind of devalues high draft picks so they can get more, more equity, BJ, later on in the draft. That's going to be New England. I mean, New England's at number 15. The thing about Bill Belichick, he thinks different than anybody else. Obviously, they're going to be in the market for a quarterback. I don't know who they have their eye on. So if Atlanta thinks that number 4 is too high, you want to trade back, because I do think New England's going to have to get a quarterback moving forward. Cam Newton is not in the future plans. Jarrett Stidham I don't think it's ever been in the future plans. So for me, I think it's going to be New England, because the thing about it is, I mean, you talk about Philly. If they get rid of Carson Wentz, they're going to be willing. They're going to be willing to stay where they are, even if they are in the sweepstakes of getting the quarterback. You talk about Carolina, you can't. I do agree. You do not do anything with anybody in your division. San Francisco, who knows what's going on with Jimmy Garoppolo in that situation? The Raiders, they in the sweepstakes. Watch the football team, Chicago, Indy, maybe even the Jets. So for my money, go with a team that's always looking to wheel and deal draft picks. And that's always the New England Patriots. You're giving them a gift by switching it. You going from. But the thing about it is, BJ, whoever you got coveted, not at quarterback, you better make sure he's going to be there at 15, because this draft is crazy. But I would go New England, because a lot of these teams, who knows what they're going to be asking for in return to be able to try to switch. I would go with New England at 15.
How about this? Stronger in the team that's directly behind you. I say regardless of what happens in front of you, if Penei Sewell's still there, I think you turn around and look at the Bengals and say, how much do you want him? How bad do you want to protect Joe Burrow? What are you willing to give up for the clear best offensive lineman in this class to jump up one spot and get him? Because we got other folks on the line who want him too. I would see how bad I could strong arm the Bengals and only jump back one spot.
Yeah. I mean, Terry Fontenot, he's going to definitely earn his money, man. As long as Rich McKay leave him alone, I think they got – I think –
They don't want to play ball? Draft Penei Sewell, it's a grade A in the first round.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that will close the door on how much they believe in Matty Ice if they go ahead and get Penei Sewell. But from what I saw on on that podcast, Terry Fontenot was like, "Look, you always get quarterbacks, so we'll
quarterback. Then you draft a quarterback, then you sign a quarterback, then you make Julio Jones a quarterback.
Just bring him in from everywhere. Bring him in from everywhere. All right, moving along. Take 2. What is your dream scenario for the Jags in the first round?
I think the dream scenario number 1 is don't mess up the first pick. Just get Trevor Lawrence. and I know that seems like a foregone conclusion, but, man, it's the Jaguars. But assuming that happens, if you could get Christian Barmore at 25, Jacksonville really struggled badly along the interior of their defensive line last year. You like your edge prospects with Allen and even Chase on still, but along the inside, you got a lot of questions. And if you could get Barmore, that would be a home run. My gut tells me that might be a little unrealistic. He's probably going to go higher than 25 where Jacksonville is. If you stand pat at 25, I think J.C. Horn would be a great pick if he's there. A 6'1" corner kind of fits the modern prototype size-wise, obviously knows the game well from his dad. Could pair with C.J. Henderson to give you a pretty impressive young corner tandem. Maybe an offensive tackle. Guys, I was talking in the show meeting about this. If a Christian Darrisaw were to fall, who's projected to go kind of in the 8 to 12 range, I think you gobble him up and you pair him with Jawan Taylor to protect Trevor Lawrence. But I don't know that you have to reach, because there is incredible offensive tackle depth in this draft class. A lot of the projections have guys like Liam Eckenberg and Alex Leatherwood and Jackson Carman and Dylan Redunds going in the second round. And Jacksonville also has 2 picks in the second round. So for those thinking you need to get another tackle to pair with Jawan Taylor to protect Trevor Lawrence, I absolutely agree. But I think there are day one starters in round 2 at offensive tackle. I think you need to immediately upgrade your defense unless maybe a Christian Darrisaw falls to 25. And I think there are options to do that. The 2 kind of home runs to me, Ben, would be Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle out of Alabama, or J.C. Horn, the corner out of South Carolina.
I would go another route, BJ. I mean, the thing about it is I know we learned a lot, in the Super Bowl about, being able to devalue certain positions that people kind of remembered. I mean, you look at Devin White and Levante David, and you got 2 linebackers that can run and hit. I think Nick Bolton. You can get Nick Bolton at number 2, because what he does is he shores up a lot of things. If I don't have to worry about, stopping the run behind my front 4, that makes it so that my front 4 can get to go out there and do what they do. Nick Bolton is a heat-seeking missile. He's going to hit everything that moves. You can teach him how to drop back in coverage. That is not the hardest thing to do. But I just think that, BJ, I'm going back to recent history of the Jacksonville Jaguars defense back when I played. I mean, I'm just saying they've always had big-time linebackers to go along with a front 4. I think you get a guy like Nick Bolton, a guy who's definitely going to drop because people are going to devalue him because, as you mentioned, BJ, these heat-seeking linebackers are being devalued like running backs in the first round. Yet when you go to the Super Bowl, who started on that defense? That would be the linebackers. That would be White. That would be David. You can get Bolton because, as you mentioned, you're going to have – if I can't get Barmore, I'm not going to reach for a D tackle that's shown flashes. I'm going to go to a guy – he's all over the field when you turn on the tape. I say Nick Bolton will be a steal to go along with Myles Jack and those guys. With a young defensive line that's still trying to figure out their way, you get him, you got a chance to go out there and be really, really good, because playing plug guys and linebackers, they've been doing their whole life. He knows how to read his keys running here.
All right, moving on. Take 3. Michael Jordan's 58 today. Happy birthday to his airness. What is your favorite Michael Jordan moment?
When I think about Jordan, I go back to that finals against the Jazz, right? When the Bulls were so untouchable in the postseason, even for teams like Utah that had Hall of Famers, Karl Malone and John Stockton, and Utah finally started to kind of gain a little bit of traction, and you're looking around going, my God, are the Jazz going to beat Jordan in his prime, Jordan and Pippen and the Bulls? And then what? Game 6. Game on the line, Jordan with a little shake, a jumper at the top of the key. That's game, that's series. Give me the title. I think beat Russell one-on-one at the top of the key. For me, that's Jordan. Give me the ball. The pressure's on. The spotlight's on. I'm going to score. Everybody in the arena knows I'm taking the shot, and you still can't stop me. Biggest stage, you want the ball in the hands of the greatest player of all time, and to me, that's what I think about when I think about Jordan.
Dikembe Mutombo is one of my favorite players because of his mentality, because of the temper, for the finger wag. Kevin and BJ, he's always gonna get the rebounds. He's always gonna be blocking shots. He's in the All-Star game, and everybody knows that Michael Jordan was the type of guy. He was looking for a reason to just put you on the hit list. Like, Michael Jordan already had a killer instinct, but if you say something to him, he's going to put you on the hit list. They're in the All-Star game. They're just trading pleasantries, just talking trash. And, Patrick Ewing come in and say, you ain't never put him on the poster. You ain't never put him on the highlight tape. Dikembe Mutombo was like, no, he didn't do it to me. Oh. And Mike like, really? You going to do this, Dikembe? You going to talk trash? Because what happens is Michael Jordan is one of those people to where he like, you guys forgot? Okay. That next season, Mike comes down. He's the Dikembe, dunks on him, give him the finger wag, and obviously he got the technical. But Michael Jordan was like, listen, nobody is exempt. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done. I'm going to embarrass you. And the fact that I told you in the All-Star game, hey, man, I hope, hey, man, stay healthy, man. I hope the family is well. I got you next season. I'm dunking on you. And a close second is against those Knicks. When he was on the baseline and he turned away and turned back around and came back and dunked, I think it might have been on Patrick Ewing. And Patrick Ewing didn't even say it. I just think that Michael Jordan got so many, but dunking on Dikembe, and obviously dunking on them Knicks on that baseline, man. It was because Michael Jordan dunked on you, and he just looked at you. Like he dunking on 7-footers, like they 6 feet. So, yeah, 2 7-footers, Ewing, Dikembe. It happens to everybody.
Yeah, he flipped around John Starks and then posterized Patrick Ewing. That was the Marv Albert. Oh, what a move by Jordan. Oh, and then it was right in Patrick Ewing. I remember that one.
Dude, Kevin.
Hold on. But BJ, even getting back to yours with Russell, it's what Jordan is the one that got the steal because the Jazz had the ball. Jordan got the steal. Look at the fans' reaction. Oh my God! As soon as he got the steal and called timeout, you knew it's over.
It's over.
You already know Michael Jordan. It's like people. It's the perfect storm. But
you know what's amazing though, Ben, is to think about. I mean, one of the great tricks of the human mind is that we don't get caught up in kind of the constant evolution of time. It's like it just goes by and we don't think about it. You don't realize, my God, I'm 38 years old. You don't think about it every day. That makes me feel old. Michael Jordan is 58 years old. Michael Jordan is almost 60 years old. What happened?
I mean, what
time marches on.
And somebody said this. Listen, it's a race. Somebody said it's a race to 25. You get to 25, like, oh my God, after 25, it just, your life just start going, you start doing, and now, BJ, especially me, you, and Kevin, the goal now is how many years can we stay away from turning into our dads? Like, because that's what's happening. Like, the thing is, when you're looking at your dad going, dude, why you dressed like that? And he looking at you like, what you think you're going to dress like? No.
I want to say this on the show, and if anybody sees me, call me out on it. And Kevin, I don't know if you do this because you normally have the jacket on. I can't see if it's tucked in. If I ever tuck in my T-shirt, that's a major problem. I'll look at my dad sometimes and say, Dad, you're going to Home Depot. Why are you wearing a tucked in T-shirt? What are you doing?
No, I will say this too, though. I mean, you talk about a humbling moment. Back in the day, little young boy, 20 years old, 19, 20 years old in college. Me and my brothers and my cousins and my friends, we said the young boys versus the old heads, aka my dad and them. We out there, Kevin. We looking nice, ready to go, going up against the tucked in shirts. Everybody tucked tight, no slack. We don't pull it out none. When I tell you they schooled us because we care about the flash, man, we had a dude named Brother Eric Best. Kevin, when he took off, I never seen Brother Eric take off his glasses. When he took off his glasses, I'm like, who, Spud? Well, my bad. They beat us so bad to the point where we over there arguing with each other. And I'm like, what happened? My dad goes, son, when you know, you know. That's not saying anything, Daddy. I'm just saying, we knew we had y'all. Y'all got the car. Y'all care about, y'all was looking like, y'all looking like them cats going against them dogs.
We went down a sideways road from Michael Jordan to old man basketball in
Kevin, I will say this, Kevin. We had old man football.
There's so many favorite moments from Jordan, but the one that kind of sticks out is the one you always see where he did the midair hand reversal.
Yes,
I believe that was against the Lakers, and that was just one of those moments that stands out in your mind. The John Starks crossover, and then the posterization of Patrick Ewing. Those are two, and of course, the dunk from the foul line in the dunk contest, like the first guy to do that. So
I don't know.
Now,
okay, carry on.
No, I was done. No, you said no.
Have you ever tucked in a T-shirt, Kevin? Have you ever tucked in a T-shirt?
I mean, not.
One of Kevin's
recently.
children was literally just in the studio with a tucked-in T-shirt.
Well, he had a shirt on over the top of it.
Wait.
That being said, my favorite Jordan story has always been where Phil Jackson was coaching him with the Bulls, and they were at practice, and his team was smoking the other team so bad that Phil Jackson flipped the scores, and then Michael Jordan.
Michael Jackson moonwalked all over him.
No, but Michael Jordan almost brought his team back from the deficit that was created by himself, and when Phil Jackson flipped the scores, almost brought his team back. Time ran out, and he wouldn't let anybody leave and wouldn't let the poor guy running the score clock leave until he flipped the score back. He's like, I'm not walking out of here like that. That's my favorite Michael Jordan story.
And, no. And this, like most people, when they do a movie, I ain't talking about Space Jam. When they do a movie, it's like they're playing like a character. No, Michael Jordan had things like "Come Fly with Me," man. It's just highlights of him. That's it. I mean, we want to call it Michael Jordan Playground. Michael Jordan Come Fly. I mean, he had a commercial called "I want to be like I want to." Hey, Mike, we got this new thing called "I want to be like." Sometimes I dream that he is me like Mike. I'm like, and Mike's like, oh, it's not fine. It's cool. Michael Jordan is the greatest, and the whole thing about it is, I don't care who you are, Kevin, BJ, Christian. If you see Mike, you're gonna turn into a fanboy. You're gonna do the Red Fox. Like you're gonna be like, "What's up, Mike?" You want him to go, "What's up, now?" You saw what he said to me. He said, "What's up?"
Yeah,
He loves me.
We got more to come here on 3 and Out. Let's take 3. We do it every day this time. More 3 and Out on the way all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you are with us. Braves pitchers and catchers reporting today. First pitchers and catchers workout tomorrow. They're in South Florida, but you look at what this Braves team will look like. The DH not in play for 2021 like it was for 2020 means the bench probably going to need to play a little bit larger role, probably get a little bit more use. The Braves signed Jason Kipnis to a minor league deal. Certainly have some work to do to round out that bench, but certainly this is an aspect that you didn't see a lot of last year, BJ, that's going to be exceedingly much more important in the day-to-day in 2021.
Sure. When you talk about, hopefully the full schedule and, not having the DH, you're going to see pinch hitters come in every night regularly when you have pitching changes. I guess, Kevin, my question to you is, and I do like the Kipnis signing. I mentioned the other day, I think that's a pretty shrewd move by the Braves front office, by Anthopoulos. I think that's a guy that'll make the team and will provide some leadership, give you some pop off the bench. But are you looking at, I know they've added an extra roster slot. Are you looking at 5 offensive, defensive bench players, 6, and kind of after the guys we know, the Camargo, probably Contreras is the backup catcher, probably Ender Inciarte if he doesn't start in center field. Who are you looking at to contend to fill out the bench?
Yeah, I mean, if this is just me, Ender Inciarte is on the bench. You have one of your highest rated prospects coming up who's known for his Gold Glove defense. They're working on him as an offensive player, and Christian Pache, he's playing every day. Like Ender Inciarte will be like, hey, we got a lead. Marcel just batted in the 8th inning, probably not coming up again. We're gonna put Ender out there because he can play better defense. But I think he'll be an outfield piece. I don't know if they'll carry an extra outfielder. Maybe if they do, it's a guy they signed that's sole job is just come off the bench and hit. So I think you're probably talking about 5 guys to sit on the Braves bench, and that also gives you a little flexibility to have an extra pitcher, especially out there early in the season while guys are trying to get up to speed. So I would imagine a pretty small bench. It is, I guess, considered a weak spot for Atlanta because you don't have a lot of proven commodities in there. If Contreras is the backup catcher, I think he only has a handful of major league at bats. Ender is not really known for his offensive prowess, and Jason Kipnis is a 260 hitter. So you don't really have that guy right now. Maybe Pablo Sandoval makes it. I mean, who knows? Camargo, again, also by and large not known as a home run hitter. He did have a good season 2 years ago, but that, if you look at statistically, historically, that's not really his game. So you don't really have that guy right now that walks in there as a pinch hitter. You're like, yeah, this one could go yard. So I'll be interested to see how that bench comes together. You probably would like to sign one more piece of somebody that could really swing the bat up there to strike some late inning fear in somebody if you have to go to the bench.
But Kevin, in terms of like bench players, how impactful do Johan Camargo have to be, though? I mean, I understand that everybody's going to be called upon throughout the course of a season. Just because I'm just looking at it as you didn't have a professional athlete's body gets used to rhythm. Well, they got out of rhythm last year because you didn't play as many games. When I think about a guy like Johan Camargo, I think about how impactful he can be. How impactful does he need to be for this team to kind of stay in rhythm this year?
I think when you look at bench players over the 162, it needs to be way more impactful than it was in 2020 because with the DH, you kind of set that aside. I mean, when you watch teams that have the DH in the American League, either you're playing or you're not. And if you're on the bench that day, you're probably not playing. I think you'll see a big difference in how impactful the bench needs to be. You need a guy that can come in and be clutch. That's the big reason the Braves like Charlie Culberson. Hey, bottom of the 8th, we need a hit. He's going to stick one out there. I think Camargo's got to be that guy as a reliable bat. There's a lot of guys, Jason Kipnis can do that. There's a lot of guys that have carved out a career being that reliable bat that can come in and just slap a hit out there every once in a while. And I think certainly for the Braves, your 1 through 9 looks pretty good, right? I mean, your 1 through 9 looks really good. It's who can I bring in the 7th or 8th when we got runners on base, the pitcher spot is up, we can slap a hit. That's got to be Camargo. It's got to be Ender Inciarte or Kipnis right now. Again, you're not going to pinch hit your catcher, and you probably could stand for somebody to show up in spring training and really have a good spring to fill that role. And I will find somebody that gets cut by somebody else.
I do think Kipnis could emerge in that Charlie Culberson role, and wishing Charlie the best. I think he's with the Texas Rangers now. But look, when you look at Kipnis, who's 33 or 34 years old, was in the World Series as a star not long ago with the Cleveland Indians. You're not asking him to play every day. You're saying, hey, man, once or twice every couple of weeks, we're going to need you to come up in the 6th, 7th inning and provide some power. I think 2 years ago, the last full season for Major League Baseball, he had 16 home runs in the American League. So I think that has better value than people might kind of initially. But I want to go back to something you mentioned right off the bat that I think also has more value than people appreciate. And that is the idea of a 8th, 9th inning where you have an outfield of Inciarte, Pache, and Acuna. There are no doubles against that outfield. There are no doubles. And I agree. I think that it's Pache's time. I think Ender Inciarte brings value to the team. But in terms of an everyday starter, maybe with a little more pop, I think Pache is the guy in center field. But, man, defense is an unheralded, untalked about aspect of baseball that is vitally important. And if you're talking about protecting a 1-2 run lead, which you're going to have to do in a National League East, which is going to be really good, after Ozuna gets his last at bat, and you're talking about turning to an AJ Minter or who knows, maybe a Shane Green or a Will Smith, and you can look in an outfield that has Inciarte, Pache, and Acuna, that's the best defensive outfield in baseball. That is the best defensive outfield in baseball. And I think you can win games that way, Kevin. I really do.
Again, we'll have to wait and see how it all comes together. I think with the Ozuna deal, you're going to grin and bear it with him out there in left field. And if he happens to make it kind of the not as bad as the Yasiel Puig situation where, Yasiel would throw to the wrong base and do some of those things that would drive you crazy, but he could hit the ball and, you can make up for it. I think Marcell Ozuna will play adequate enough outfield. Maybe he makes a mistake here or there, but I don't think, again, is it as good as the other two guys next to him? But what do we see with Andrew Jones? If you got a guy like that in center field, you don't necessarily have to be the world's best left fielder, right? You just need to not be a complete fall-down failure defensively, and I don't think Marcell Ozuna is going to be that. I think the Braves will be just fine. But you're right, late games with Ender Inciarte, with those guys, you would have the top outfield, defensive outfield you could possibly find anywhere in Major League Baseball, in my estimation. I don't think that's a hyperbole or anything like that.
So Kevin, sounds like you saying Marcell Ozuna still got those young men coming up in your league saying, "Look, coach, I can hit." I know I'm not the best defensive guy, but I'm leaving the yard because all jokes aside, when you look at this Braves team, Kevin, as a whole, they don't have a lot of question marks. A team that's obviously the team to beat in that division, but I just think that when you look at the fact that you're going to have with all the different question marks, it always comes back to this: Austin Riley. Is Austin Riley going to be your everyday starter at third base, or does he struggle so bad at the plate that you say, well, maybe we can't play him every day?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of role players on this team and he's one of them that's what it's going to boil down to. I think another one would be Dansby. Dansby's had his ups and downs. If he has a year at the plate like he had in the 60 games last year, the Braves would be just fine. If he has one of those prolonged struggles, that puts a different spin on this offense. So, yeah, I think Austin Riley, I'm interested to see what he does in spring training. I think for my money, you should just let him play every day, just see what he can fully do. I think he's a better player than Camargo. I think he's got more upside than Camargo. Let him play every day and either show you that he can't do it or show you that he can do it. And you'll know either way what you need to do moving forward. So, again, 1 through 9 starting lineup, I got no problems with this Braves team. BJ, I really don't. I think you look at starting pitching, you feel good about it, especially when Soroka comes back. Bullpen, I think on the back end, you feel good. Maybe you have a question mark or two. Is Carl Edwards Jr. going to be a guy that can squeeze you from the 6th to the 7th inning or 7th to 8th inning if need be? Those are things that'll play themselves out. But I think if you need a late inning pinch hit, where's that guy off the bench going to come from? But the starting lineup looks really, really good to me for the Atlanta Braves, and I'm excited to see them get back. I think the full squad workouts start towards the end of next week or middle of next week, and then they start playing games at the end of the month. So I'm excited to see where they go, and we'll actually get some day-to-day reports on what's going on this go-around.
Let me ask you this though, because there is one spot we kind of glossed over, and Tyler Flowers was a catcher you kind of took for granted, right? It's like, oh, Tyler Flowers is up there, but he was a good hitter, had some pop. I know late in his Braves career had some defensive mishaps, but he was a good player, especially for a second catcher. Is it a foregone conclusion that Wilson Contreras is the backup to d'Arnaud? Or I know this is your dude. I mean, I know this is your guy. If he has a star spring training performance, could we see Shea Langeliers?
Maybe. I think when you sign d'Arnaud to the 2-year deal, this is your year to develop another guy, right? I mean, you have Contreras is a good, well thought about catcher. Shea Langeliers was a first round pick. Alex Jackson is a defensive catcher that you could start with coming out of spring training. So to me, if you're the Braves, let's see what they have to develop, because BJ, how many years has it been? Oh, it's Kurt Suzuki and Alex Jackson on a 1-year deal. And we'll just bring them back. We'll bring them both back. It worked out so well. And then it was Kurt Suzuki, and then Kurt Suzuki's gone, and you had Tyler Flowers. You're like, man, I don't know if I feel good about Tyler Flowers as my, everyday catcher for the most part. So you bring in Travis d'Arnaud on a 2-year deal. Well, at some point, you'd like to see if what you got in the minor leagues can develop. You got to give him a chance. And I think Contreras is one of those guys. When he was up early this season, he did hit in his limited time there in the big leagues. And again, we'll get a full spring to evaluate that out. But to me, if I'm the Braves, I'm not going out and I say wasting money, but I'm not going out and using up the cap space or the salary that I'm willing to spend that's left. I'm using bad terms here. The salary that I have that I'm willing to spend, I'm not using that on a catcher when I've probably got 1, 2, or 3 potential young guys, at least 1 or 2 of which are probably good enough to play at the major league level that you can develop and actually see the fruits of their work if you've got something to work with at the big league level. And maybe a year from now, it's Contreras and Shea Langeliers as your catcher, and you've got 2 of them who are very, very good and can duke it out to see who's going to be that everyday guy for you down the road. But if you're Atlanta, to me, you got to develop one that can work with the staff that's going to be there for more than a year-to-year basis or 1 or 2 years. Need to have that guy. And I think we'll find that guy here in spring training. We'll come back. More to come here on 3 and Out, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Welcome back to 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you are with us here all across the network, online at ESPNCoastal.com and on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. The Hawks have the Celtics tonight. BJ and Ben, they've lost 9 of their last 12 games, but somehow are still only a game and a half out of first in the Southeast, only 3 games out of fourth place in the East. And this is where they starting lineup almost comprised entirely of first-rounders that they drafted. I mean, Trae Young technically wasn't drafted by the Hawks, but I mean, I think we could say that basically he was, but virtually the entire lineup is first-round guys that they drafted. Yet here they are, 11-16 in a pretty weak half of the NBA. Should they be doing better?
Probably, and they've been playing really poorly as of late. It's been, at least in terms of where the expectations were in the preseason to now, just in a vacuum, it's been really disappointing. But I will say this, and Ben, we were talking about this earlier. I do think you give them a little bit of a break with some of the injuries. They've been hit pretty hard by the injury bug. Bogdan Bogdanović, who was one of their big preseason or offseason acquisitions, he's played in 9 games. DeAndre Hunter's hurt right now. He's played in 18 games. Danilo Gallinari has played in 15 games. So Bogdanović and Gallinari, who are kind of your 2 big offseason additions, if you want to count Clint Capella as a last season addition, Gallinari and Bogdanović have played in 24 games combined. And then you have Rondo, who's missed some time. So I do think if the Hawks could get healthy, they would have a much better rotation and would have better options in terms of mixing and matching their personnel. And what stinks about the Bogdanović injury, the Rondo injury, and the Gallinari injury specifically, Ben, is those were the guys that were brought in to be the veterans, right? You're still a really young team. John Collins is still really young. Trae Young, really young. Herter, Reddish, these are young guys. You brought in the veterans to kind of fast forward the rebuilding process, and their injuries have really slowed things down. But yeah, the streak they're on right now is disappointing, but I am at least willing to say the injuries have hurt them and have hurt them pretty significantly.
Yeah, BJ, but the whole thing about it is, too, at a certain point, a lot, they are a young team. I get that part. Trae Young is still having another all-star caliber season. He's a scorer. We get that part, right? John Collins might get traded. See, John Collins, averaging 18.1 points a game, 7.8 rebounds, one block a game, really, really efficient shooting the 3, declined a $90 million extension. Did not, no, I'm good. I don't want to. But the thing is this is what I see with Atlanta. Every game I get a chance to see them play, they lack so much attention to detail in crunch time. It's like they ain't even there. They pick the worst time to have turnovers. This is what they do every time. Now, if they lead in the third, BJ, they ball. And I say, we lead, they got a shot. But this is the thing. Basketball always comes down to fundamentals in the fourth quarter. I don't care if that's college. I don't care if that's high school, and they struggle. They're not going to box out at all. I love Trae Young. I love it. But this is the thing. If you can't stop the guy you guard, I don't care about your 35. You cannot stop the guy. Basketball is both ends of the court. Last time I checked, this is the thing about Atlanta. Every time people say it's poor defensive execution. No, you got to try. You have to try to be on defense to have poor. And I bring it back to Lloyd Pierce. Lloyd Pierce got the head coaching job because of his weight, because of known being a developer in the NBA. He got people talking about him all throughout. And I just think that, BJ, when you talk about this team, if they don't want to play defense, it's not going to matter. I mean, I know it's an offensive-driven league. I get that part. But Atlanta is not one of those teams to where they're not going to outscore teams. If they score 110, they're going to lose 130 to 110. If they score 120, good God, it might be 150 to 120. So I just think that when you look at this team, yes, I like Trae Young. John Collins, I don't think he wants to be in Atlanta anymore. I really, really don't. Because, BJ, when you talk about
and I do wonder real quick then if kind of the acquisition and rise of Clint Capella does make John Collins a movable piece, because if you look at Capella, he's averaging 14 and 14. I mean, he's averaging 14 rebounds a game. That's amongst the NBA leaders. I love Collins. I hope there's a way to make it work, but I do wonder, to your point, if what we've seen with Capella makes Collins, at least in theory, a movable piece.
But I don't like that about Atlanta. Why is it we draft guys, develop guys, they become all-star caliber, and we get rid of them? What is that about? Atlanta is not a good enough franchise to draft guys, develop it, and let them go. I mean, it's the same Atlanta team, and I hate to go back to it. I'm just saying, I don't want to go back to Teague and all those guys when they had the best record in the East, and I go, it's Atlanta, man. Don't get listen, between the Falcons and the Hawks, it's amazing, man. I'm like, man, these people will give you a heart attack, man, because you be like, dude, it's not like they lack talent. It's not as if they lack it, BJ. And the East is not the beast we've grown up knowing it to be. And yet the same Atlanta team who's probably going to make the playoffs, like they're probably going to get in this year, and it's going to be much to do about nothing because they're going to be one and done. Because, Kevin, as you all know, if you can't do the little things in basketball, you don't have a shot. And this Atlanta team, they're exciting now. Whoa, they can get up and down the court. But if you need one stop, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, they're really tough in close games as of late. I know they've lost a couple of 2-3 point games late.
Yeah.
In overtime, I think they lost to the Mavericks not that long ago. So, yeah, you're right. You look at the box score. A couple of years ago, they were averaging about 95 points a game. Now it seems like every night it's 110, 111, 113 points. And as Ben said, the problem is giving up 115, 116, and you can score all the points in the world, but if you can't slow somebody down from doing what they're going to do, it's going to be, and again, it's not like they don't have defensive players.
Yes.
John Collins, a shot block. Capella can play some solid defense, but as a team, they are porous and bad. And maybe that starts up front with Trae Young, who we talked 2 years ago. Well, last year before the bubble, he was statistically the worst defender in all of the NBA, right? I mean, by the metrics, he was the worst defender in all of the NBA, and you just got to be better than that.
Yes, and the thing about it is people be talking about how many he's an offensive, he's a scorer, BJ. I give him that. But the thing about it is it cancels out. If he gave you 35 and the guy he's guarding gave you 20 and 15 rebounds, I just canceled out everything you did because of my offensive and defensive production. Trae, he ain't gonna get no bigger. But if your star doesn't play defense, that means your other four guys, they got to commit to it. Because if not, we be box score. We become box score watchers. Hey man, you saw what I did today? Yeah, you lost. That's what I saw.
Yep. We've got more to come here on 3 and Out. Hawks are at the Celtics tonight. We'll see if they can get back on the winning side of things here this evening. It is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We're streaming live at ESPNCoastal.com. Good to have you along here on Three and Out. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Glad you're with us. ESPNCoastal.com. We're streaming live, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can check us out there as well as if you missed any portion of the show, we'll archive it there on our YouTube channel, as well as the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. So no reason why you can't check out any portion of the show. We got a lot of college football to talk about in the final hour of the program, as well as we've seen a number of big name guys that are going to be going in this draft who are going to be the new faces of college football. Look forward to getting to that coming up in just a little bit here on Three and Out. But again, the Jags with the number 1 pick. As you said, BJ, don't screw it up. I don't know that they can, but we shall see.
I mean, I wouldn't say I don't know that they can. Talk like that makes me a little nervous. But look, it's right there for you. The draft is never a guarantee. I mean, Ben, you've even told me that just talking off the air, that for all the Trevor Lawrence, all of our problems, are fixed talk. That's a lot to put on one guy, and you never know. You might think, you might feel really good about, you might have all the boxes checked, but you never know. But I think step one for the Jags here: take Lawrence, take a deep breath, reevaluate. It's hard to make a plan for 25 because a lot could happen in front of you. You're kind of at the mercy of the draft, but get Lawrence, take a deep breath, and move forward. I think that's step one for the Jags.
No, bump taking a breath. You're giving a gift. He's there. Okay, like bump the breaths, bump the meditation. He's there. Get him, because you know what overthinking does? Mitch Trubisky. That's what overthinking it does, and look what it does to your franchise. And Kevin didn't like Matty Ice, and rightfully so. But Kevin apologized. Kevin forgave himself for what he said. But his name is Trevor. He's 6'6". He can throw it 70 yards. He just had surgery. You have a gift, okay? Because if you say anybody other than Trevor, you're gonna show why you the Jag.
Christian's all upset that I didn't get on board for drafting Matt Ryan. I apologize. It's fine. I don't even remember who it was.
I do. It was Glenn Dorsey.
Glenn Dorsey. That's fine. And here we are 13 years later, and what do the Falcons still need to address?
Talk about it, Kevin.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying. But we still 13 years later, and every talking point,
because
every single year.
Because time's a real thing, and Matt Ryan's getting older. Now
still
they
need defensive line help.
Like you said, a decade year later, I'll get out of here.
I apologize for it. You get out of here. It's 3 and Out. Welcome back. Final hour of 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Love to hear from you on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We are, again, across the network, streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com, live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. You can check us out there. We mentioned the draft coming up. Trevor Lawrence likely going to go number 1. Justin Fields probably in the top maybe 2, 3, 4, or 5, depending on what team wants to jump on. Just so many huge names of college football moving into this draft. Who are the faces of college football in 2021?
Well, I still think you start at the quarterback position. I still think there's star power at the most important position on the field. I mean, and you can kind of just go with a number of different guys. You can start with your Sam Howells and your Spencer Rattlers. I think De'Aaron King. I think Grayson McCall. I think Brock Purdy. I think Kadon Slovis. I think Michael Penix potentially, and then I think you look at some of the new guys that are going to be introduced. Bryce Young's going to be a star. We may not know a ton about him outside of his recruiting rankings right now, the new quarterback at Alabama, but Ben, I think he's going to be a superstar. There are guys that are going to step into that role, whether they're ready for it or not, and I certainly think Young is. But to me, you look at the quarterbacks and you go Sam Howell, Spencer Rattler, and Matt Corral. I think that's a pretty darn good group to start with.
It's a good group, but is Sam Howell in the same stratosphere as Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence in terms of the college football fandom at large knowing who they are? I mean, like, we know who Sam Howell is, but does college football know who Sam Howell is? I don't think they do.
I mean,
everybody knew who Trevor Lawrence was and Justin Fields.
Yeah, and I think if those two guys are the other barometer, that's a tough metric to meet. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, as a true freshman, went 15-0 and won a national championship. Justin Fields had one of the greatest, most proficient seasons in the history of the sport in his first year at Ohio State. But I do think if you're willing to kind of open up the box score, look at some of the stats, it's pretty impressive. I don't know that we've seen too many quarterbacks come in and as a true freshman and a true sophomore do what Sam Howell has done. Matt Corral last year at Ole Miss had 2 of the most proficient single game performances in the history of the quarterback rating metric. You look at Spencer Rattler, what he did right away at Oklahoma and what he did in his most recent performance against Florida. I mean, these guys have some pretty impressive achievements on their resumes. I mean, even a guy like Brock Purdy at Iowa State. When's the last time Iowa State won the Fiesta Bowl? I mean, so I think there's star power at the quarterback position. Now, is there the depth of star power at the running back or receiver positions? I think that's a more interesting question when you look around kind of the totality of college football.
Yeah, but the whole thing about it is I still think that these guys got a chance to still be the faces. Yes, and the thing about it is, Kevin, we didn't know about Sam Howell because of the situation with Trevor Lawrence. And he had a freshman season that nobody has had statistically, all of his own. But Sam Howell's ready to take a starring role. Spencer Rattler for Oklahoma is definitely going to take a starring role. Guys like JT Daniels and Emory Jones can benefit from the schools that they play at. I still think Matt Corral could be a star. Bryce Young, because of where he plays. And I do agree. The thing about Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, we knew about them in them 7-on-7 circuits. We knew about them a long time before they decided, and they didn't fall off. And so I do think that, I'm not even going to try to DJU at Clemson is going to be a star. So I do think that, but it's much easier to be a star when you are a quarterback at big time programs. And BJ, I think that, college football is in a great place because you got good quarterback play at a lot of different schools in a lot of different conferences that's going to kind of spread the wealth. Trevor Lawrence, everything he did, we went crazy for it. Even if it wasn't worthy of that. Oh my God, did you see that throw? Oh my God, because of his debut. But I still think college football is in a really, really good place. And you could have guys at other schools emerge. But Sam Howell is gonna you're gonna hear so much about him, in this process. And because of the pandemic, we were just so focused on having games. It was much easier for those guys who was already stars to kind of be more of a superstar because we had already branded them as the next this or the next that. Spencer Rattler is going to be a star. Bryce Young is going to be a star. If JT Daniels can continue on this, continue with his momentum, he could be a star. So yes, I still think that because it's more spread around. I mean, I will say this, and I know this is crazy. Don't think that Sims at Georgia Tech can't be one of the faces. If he comes out and plays well, he can be a star as well. So yeah, I think that you're gonna spread it, but I think Sam Howell and Spencer Rattler are gonna be the cream of the crop with a guy like De'Aaron King. If he can come back off injury, he got a shot to be up there as well.
And again, I know that's a tall. That's why I asked it. I mean, that's a tall mountain to climb. But when you're saying, hey, can they be the Trevor Lawrence to Justin Fields? But I think when you're the face of college football, as we were talking about in this discussion, that's where some of those guys before Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, we had some other guys that were out there that were doing some incredible things. I'll be interested to see if it's a guy like Sam Howell who can he take college football by storm. I mean, you're talking about the line of the Baker Mayfields, the Johnny Manziels, where people who didn't even really watch football all that much knew who those guys were. Do those same people know Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell? Maybe they will in November, but I don't know that they do now.
I mean, it's interesting.
As they've been. I
mean, it's interesting when you think about like a Baker Mayfield or you think about a Justin Fields, those guys in particular, because keep in mind, it's different, I think, being the quarterback at North Carolina versus being the quarterback at Alabama or Ohio State or Oklahoma. And I do think Spencer Rattler is a superstar. I mean, we've kind of grown accustomed to that, and we kind of take it for granted at Oklahoma, right? Because you have Mayfield and Murray and Hurts, and it's like you kind of take all the production for granted. But I think Spencer Rattler is a superstar. But with Howell, even though he wasn't at an Alabama or an Ohio State, what he did as a true freshman was pretty unparalleled. He had 38 touchdown passes. And I wrote a story on this. I remember back after his freshman year on Southern Pigskin, Sam Howell is the only quarterback this millennium to throw for 35 touchdown passes as a true freshman. That's it. It's Sam Howell. Trevor Lawrence didn't do that. Only 2 redshirt freshmen in college football over the last millennium have thrown for 35 touchdowns in a single season. Those 2 quarterbacks, Sam Howell and Jameis Winston, both went on to win the Heisman Trophy, both went on to play for a national championship, and both ultimately became the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. And those are the only 2 guys to do it as redshirt freshmen. Sam Howell did it as a true freshman. So I think some of the issue with Howell is it's a little different because he's at North Carolina, or even Matt Corral, because he's at Ole Miss, and they're not at Ohio State, they're not at Clemson, they're not at Florida, they're not at Alabama. I do think DJ Uiagalelei is a star already, but do I think Sam Howell can be the face of college football? Yeah, I do.
Well, and don't discredit this too. I mean, when quarterbacks that got a chance to be a face to, or quarterbacks that are powerhouse schools that are struggling. Mackenzie Milton could be a star. He's at Florida State. He started balling, people are going to start talking about it. If Bo Nix can get it right, people are going to start talking about him. And a guy, I think too, if he can emerge as the guy and they can start playing competitive, Hendon Hooker, he can be one too, because he's at Tennessee. They've been bad, but if they start, kind of like getting those teams in the national conversation consistently. So yeah, I mean, Kevin, we ain't going to have the usual suspects from the previous year coming into this year. I still think you got the Howells of the world, the De'Aaron Kings of the world, the Rattlers of the world, the JT Daniels, the Jones, and Corrals. But teams that are usually good, that are struggling, if those quarterbacks start playing well, we're going to start talking about them for what they're doing for the entire team.
And again, like I said, there's a huge void that's being left by a lot of these guys moving on to the NFL. And certainly some guys are going to have to step up and take control of that mantle in terms of the faces of college football. But again, maybe it is a product of North Carolina, or you play at Ole Miss or the Iowa States, where some of these top quarterbacks are hanging around right now. It's Clemson's going to have a new guy, right? Ohio State's going to have a new guy, very talented. Florida going to have a new guy. Alabama going to have a new guy. Where some of these power programs that everybody's saying are the top. I mean, essentially JT Daniels. I mean, does he count as kind of a new guy at quarterback? He only played 4 games there for Georgia last year. So a lot of your top 5 programs all going to have new quarterbacks very talented ones, but new quarterbacks that by and large a lot of people don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see if they overtake the Sam Howells and others who are at the, I guess, programs not so much in the spotlight here right now.
Yeah, and I also think it's bigger too than just the national contenders, right? I mean, Clemson, sort of a new quarterback. I know people know Uiagalelei, but you're replacing Trevor Lawrence. Ohio State replacing Justin Fields. Alabama replacing Mac Jones. Florida replacing Kyle Trask. Well, it goes kind of to the next tier as well. I mean, Texas replacing Sam Ellinger. Florida State, I guess, replacing James Blackman, but
Notre Dame.
beyond that, right. Looking for stability. Notre Dame replacing Ian Book. Oregon's projected starting quarterback as of a week ago, Tyler Show, just entered the transfer portal. So you have a lot of attrition throughout college football, and then from college football to the next level at like signature programs, region to region. And I do think that kind of lends itself for the door being open, but if you want to just pick three, for example, and I do think there's more than that, but if you want to look at Howell, Corral, and Rattler, I mean, those guys are elite quarterbacks that are deserving of kind of that national profile, that national spotlight to lead college football, if you will.
All they really have to do is control these narratives. I mean, the one thing, we don't give these announcers enough credit for how they are really controlling these narratives in the minds of those people. I mean, I was always told, media doesn't dictate perception, but it definitely creates it. So when you talk about how they talk about these guys, it's how they, if we're watching, if I've never seen Hendon Hooker play. Listen, this guy, when you talk about Tennessee, this guy's going to help them get back to who they are. That's going to make me want to watch. And then, because I'm telling y'all, we decide, like when people say, is Trevor Lawrence a once in a generation talent? I don't know. But that's all you hear about him. So everything he does, it can be a 5-yard pass. Did you see that? And that's what the media does. We create these players, and then they hopefully go on to become these big-time players. But yeah, I do agree, BJ, because there isn't an alpha dog out front, that makes it so that anybody can take that leading role. Can they handle it once they do take that leading role, though?
We've got more to come here on 3 Now. We'll see who some of those stars are that are stepping up as well. As we go throughout the spring, we'll see some of those guys and those names come to be. We'll come back. Much more to come. It's 3 Now, talking a little college football all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett, Ben Troop. Glad you are with us all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We talked about Dan Mullen back in hour number 1, talking about his thoughts on the future of college football and kind of where he thinks it's headed. But also, looking back, was asked about his 2020 and, wanted to have the swamp packed for an SEC football game. There he got fined by the SEC after the brawl at halftime with Missouri. He then wore the Darth Vader outfit so he could be embracing that villain role. And then after the Cotton Bowl loss, said, I thought our scout team guys did pretty good out there today as well. And then Florida's got some probation going for the first time in quite some time. And he said, quote, there are probably some times I said some things that, were maybe regrettable and maybe didn't come off the right way, maybe got interpreted a different way. You're always trying to improve, always trying to get better and look at that. I think one of the things to do as you look back and reflect and say, hey, at that moment, is that the right way to approach something? I appreciate the honesty there for Dan Mullen. I like to go by that approach before I say something, period. It's a good reflective moment, but maybe even if you think, hey, we should have a packed out Ben Hill Griffin Stadium and pack the swamp out, you say, I'm probably not going to go over well if I say it. Maybe you say, hey, it would be great if we could have some fans there to cheer us on. But Dan Mullen there kind of saying, hey, in my moment of reflection, maybe there are some things in 2020 that I should have worded a little differently.
Coming from a guy that's been doing interviews, I don't know for how long. Like this is a part of his job. And see, this is what happens though. Once again, this is what happens. So when players make mistakes, people go crazy, don't they? Oh my God, this guy he make it all about himself. You said pack the swamp. So you want to pack it. Then when they told you about it, you said it again. Like somebody saying, you really want to pack the swamp? That's just trying to give you a gift. Like Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall pick, that's a gift, and you didn't unwrap the gift. Then, well, maybe you'd think maybe I said something I should have said. Maybe it got interpreted the wrong way. No, you got the brakes beat off you in the bowl game. You call it a scout team. You lost the last 3 games of the season. You talk about our last game was the SEC championship game. You lost that one too. And that's what happens. When your production is one thing and the tolerance you think is going to be another thing, the tolerance is getting really, really thin. And the thing about Dan Mullen, let's be honest, he don't like being questioned. Don't ask me about this no more. Don't ask me about the type of things I said. I said it. That's it. This is the same Dan Mullen, but just like Dabo Swinney, he don't want to be around college football when they start paying players. Now you want to pack the swamp during the pandemic. Now you wear a Darth Vader outfit. You started a brawl against Mizzou right at halftime. Why? Because you knew you were going to beat them. That's the only why you tried to start a fight. Because I will say this, Dan Mullen, he's the coach of my alma mater. Obviously, he's a really, really good coach. Try to start a brawl against Vanderbilt. You know why you didn't want that smoke, BJ? Because Derek Mason would have beat the brakes off of Dan Mullen. He knows it. I know it. We know it. But this goes back to a bigger problem. Dan Mullen doesn't feel the consequence of what he does ever. And that's why he continues to do. He wore a Darth Vader outfit. I'm just saying. I didn't understand why he was doing it. I just think that Dan Mullen has been really, really successful for a really, really long time. AKA, don't ask me about what I do. Maybe I should have said this. Maybe it got it. No. You did say this. I don't. You did say it, and it got interpreted based off what you said. So I just think that when you look at Dan Mullen right now, he better keep winning. I know that because all these things that kind of go under the rug, BJ, because he's winning, let him start losing. All that stuff that was brushed under, they're going to pull it back out. Say, yeah, well, he did this. Because that's how it usually goes. We forgive you as long as you balling, and then when you start tripping, all that stuff that we forgave, it comes back out. So I just think that Dan Mullen is just a microcosm of head coaching in college football. They want the discipline to be on the players, not them. They want the players to have to answer questions, not themselves. But the heart and soul of the team starts from the top. So if Dan Mullen don't want to take responsibility, he's always talking about the Gator standard, he might want to start living up to it. Because if a player had a Darth Vader outfit on in a post-game press conference, if a player started a fight, if a player was talking about packing the swamp and all this, how would he or she be looked upon in the perception of student athletes and in the media?
Yeah, well said. I mean, I think all of us can certainly appreciate and value apologies and introspection and reflection. I think all of us, say and do things. We look back and go, yeah, that probably wasn't great. But I think moving forward, you got to see a little more awareness, a little more of an appreciation for the moment. I was not a huge fan. I think we talked about this. After the bowl game. I was not a huge fan of the response to what happened in the Cotton Bowl. We all understand that Florida was limited. A number of teams were dealing with situations like that. Not showing great awareness when you're talking about packing the swamp. You don't want to have fights happen in a college football game. We saw what the bowl game with Mississippi State and Tulsa. You saw a very dangerous situation. You don't want that. And you understand being heated. You understand being passionate. You understand, having your guys back. But you gotta be above moments like that. The Darth Vader thing, maybe that's one of those moments where leading up to it, you're like, hey, I can bring some levity to the situation, or this will be funny, or this will be humorous, but maybe contextually looking back on it, maybe not. But look, I think we all can appreciate introspection, but moving forward, you want to have a better feel for the moment. That's what I go back to, Ben. You want to have a better kind of tone and tenor that's reflective of what's going on. And I also do agree with you. When you win, stuff that might be a big deal. If you lose, not quite as big of a deal because you're successful. Winning cures all ills. We've heard that and seen it in sports for years. So I do wonder. I think that's a fair question, Ben. Some of the stuff that Dan Mullen said that raised some eyebrows, where you're looking around going, dude, like, what are you talking about? Would it have been received differently nationally and regionally if Dan Mullen maybe went 3-8? Went 3-9, went 4-7 last year? I think that's a fair question to ask.
Marco Wilson is the best possible scenario. Marco Wilson threw a shoe and people lost it. What is he doing? Did you see him throw that shoe? Well, here's the thing. When Brandon Spikes was there, he punted a football. When my senior year at Arkansas, Keywan Ratliff got his third pick for a touchdown. He threw the ball in the upper deck at Arkansas. Voshan Joseph, when Brad Stewart got the game sealing pick six against LSU, and Joe Burrow, guess what? Voshan Joseph took the ball from Brad Stewart and punted it in the stands, and they heroes because they won those games. But when you lose, what is wrong with Marco? All I'm saying is the great Brian Billick said this. He said the same thing they hire you for will be the same thing they fire you for. It will be the same thing because I told you, as long as production is here, tolerance is here. It matches. But when production slides, boy, so does tolerance. And just listen to the tone of an AD. When AD goes, oh, yeah, man, he's our guy. When it goes, well, that means that it ain't the same. And I'm not saying that's what's going on right now, but Dan Mullen does a lot of stuff. I mean, costumes, starting fights, talking stupid. I'm just saying he doing a lot of different stuff, BJ. He's building up a track record. You know what guys like Dan Mullen do? They hire guys like Chris Doran when they go to the NFL. Telling you. Why? Because ain't no consequence to what they do. I like Dan Mullen. I like him as a coach, but if he's not showing a good example to his position coaches and players by the type of stuff he be doing, because just because you're a good coach don't mean that you get to do all kind of crazy stuff. Because if a 3-8 coach can't do it, an 8-4 coach can't do it either.
Again, we'll see what how it goes forward if we have a Darth Vader Part 2 in 2021. We'll come back. We got more to come here on this Wednesday. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Welcome back, 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you were with us here on this Wednesday. Braves pitchers and catchers back at it today. They'll have their first workout tomorrow. Position players next week, and actually have some Braves baseball's Grapefruit League games coming up next Sunday, getting things started there in South Florida. And again, as they get started, Mark Bradley of the AJC, who's normally pretty pessimistic about the outlook on certain things, said, quote, "Hey, the 2020 Braves came close. This team is better." Do you believe that? Is this team better than what we saw in 2020?
I mean, on paper, I'll say this. I'm always a little hesitant with stuff like that because there's so much parity and just volatility and unpredictability in sports, especially in pro sports, like in college football, college basketball. Well, college basketball may be a bad example this year, but in college football, you can normally say, yeah, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, they're going to be elite. In baseball, which is probably even the least volatile of the pro sports, it's hard to replicate success because of the moving parts and just the duration of a traditional season. But Kevin, and I tried to ride for some of these guys. Last year, the Braves were starting pitchers that I had never heard of. I may not even get their names right now, like Tommy Malone and Robbie Keane and all, like dudes I've never even heard of. And maybe we get to that point again this year. But on paper, if you look at a starting rotation, and you guys know how I feel about starting rotations, I think you win in baseball with starting rotations. In theory, you have Max Fried, Mike Soroka at some point, Charlie Morton. You spend a lot of money on Drew Smiley. You're talking about Ian Anderson. You still have guys like Kyle Wright and Bryce Wilson. That is extraordinary depth. And that is a luxury you did not have last season. So when I look at a team that on paper has almost unrivaled depth at the most important position in the sport, I mean, Kev, I'm willing to say yes.
What you so hesitant for, BJ? I mean, think about what you just said. I mean, Ian Anderson got a chance to emerge in a pandemic-stricken season, and his first start was against the Yankees. Ball. Second start was against the Red Sox. Ball. Then he balled in the postseason. Kyle Wright and those guys, I get it, but I think being able to add Morton to Smiley helps. A healthy Soroka helps. You know who's going to benefit from this season? Isaac Alvis. He couldn't get into his rhythm in a 60-game season. A full season, he's going to be in best. Ronald Acuna Jr. is still Acuna. He's still the truth. Marcel, obviously, he has defensive, deficiencies. Okay, that's fine. But he going to ball at the plate. Freddie Freed finally got his just dues. He finally got his MVP season, and he was dealing with a lot of injuries going into last season on top of the fact he had coronavirus. All those these guys are healthy now, and these guys know what everybody does around them. Ronald Acuna Jr. knows what a Marcel does. Ozzie and Freddie Freed. I just think that now, BJ, is okay. Let's just call it what it is. The 2020 Braves are ahead of schedule. Nobody expected them to get as far as they got. We can say that. Nobody expected them to be up 3-1 against the Dodgers. They did that without Mike Soroka. I know a full season is not 60 games. I'm not saying that. But the Braves shouldn't be scared of anybody in their division because with all the additions people want to add, they still got a chance to win this division. I just think that the Braves team is better because you brought back Marcel on a team-friendly deal, even without the DH. You talk about Morty, you talk about Smiley, you talk about Acuna, you talk about Alvis. So you don't – can Austin Riley be your third baseman? All right. We've been talking about that for the last 2 years. Kevin said, let him play. I mean, why pay a guy to be the future and not let him play? Let him play. And he don't got a chance to, he don't have to go out there and be, he don't got to go out there and be the best player, at the plate. He's gonna learn how to be more comfortable at the plate. But I do think the 2021 Braves are better, BJ. You know why? Because they know they're good enough to go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers. They know they are good enough. Now, beating them is different, but they are good enough to go toe-to-toe. So I just think
that is an interesting point. And I guess, Ben, you can speak to it as an athlete, but prior to last year, when people talked about the Braves as being a contender, it was all theoretical. Nobody on the Braves roster, unless I'm not thinking of a free agent or somebody, Kevin, not many at the very least, had won a postseason series, a real meaningful postseason series. So it's like the idea of contending for a World Series title was theoretical. Does that psychology, Ben, matter when now you can look across Major League Baseball and say, we were beating the Dodgers 3-1. We were a game away from the World Series. Does that make the talent more confident when it's out on the field?
That makes the mindset. They got the talent. It's the mindset. It's the whole thing about it is until you do it, it is that little bit of doubt. We can talk about how good the Braves are and what they're gonna do. The Braves have superseded expectations since Alex Anthopoulos has been running the team. They have superseded expectations. Ronald Acuna Jr. is just as good as everybody said he was. Not just that, and that's not just coming from Braves beat writers. That's anybody that know baseball. Marcell Ozuna made us forget all about Josh Donaldson because of his production. Ozzie Albies has already been an all-star. Mike Soroka got hurt. Ian Anderson wasn't even expected to play. I just think that BJ, in order to know you can beat, in order to know you are the best out there, give me the best that baseball has to offer. We was a 3-1, and that's when the Dodgers showed who they were. They had to be backed into a corner, and I don't think nobody gonna get mad at the Braves. 2020 would have been successful. The Braves would have just won a playoff series. They was a game away from being in the World Series. So. Yes, I do. Now they're gonna have to go out there and prove it. But BJ, this is the thing about the Braves, though. They're still the best team in the 8th inning. You know, like late innings, they still can come back. I don't like that they do that, but they've added depth. You know, to the starting pitcher. They hopefully they're gonna add some depth. You know, to the bullpen. But this starting lineup scares people to death. When you look at this, when you look at Ozzie and Acuna and you look at Freddie Freed, they're gonna scare everybody that they go up against. I just think that. I was in the National Football League for 4 years. I made the playoffs my last year. We were very, very young at first. We went from 4-12 to 5-11 my first 2 years. Then we got Vince Young, who didn't start his first 8 games, you know, because we had Kerry Collins. He came in and guess what? He won, I think his last say we went 8-8 and he won Rookie of the Year. So okay, we got our guy. The next year we go to the playoffs. Now we lost in the playoffs, right? But it takes those building blocks, and most of your team is still 20-something. That's what we forget. They're still 22, 23. Kevin, I just think that most teams are just talking about what their teams could do based off their roster and all the money that they spend. That don't equate to winning in the playoffs. The Braves do it the Braves way. They ain't seeing breaking news, a $250 million pitcher, and they still getting it done. So Alex Anthopoulos is doing it his way despite everything going on in this division. People just throwing money around. And dare I say, everybody, just like we was hoping that the Nationals didn't get it done and they did. Oh, don't think that everybody was, oh, God, please don't let the Braves beat the Dodgers because but they didn't do it. But I do think last year showed the Braves what they could do, if they put it all together.
Well, I think mindset's very important, obviously, Ben, for sure. I look at this team and say, is it better? In some aspects, it is. In some aspects, I think maybe it isn't. I think the bullpen, the back end, I would love to have had Melanson back. Shane Green still can happen there. So I think you have some guys shifting roles in the back end. Still very good there. I think the 1 through 9 is very good. The bench not as good as the Braves have had in the last couple of years. So is the starting team better than it was last year? I think so. I think the rotation is better than it was last year. But I think the mental aspect of knowing that you were there should play huge with a team that's still got a lot of upside. Because I think that can go two ways. It was like, hey, we were almost there and let the opportunity slip away. But I feel like this team has still got a lot of great baseball in it from a standpoint of, and because I hate when you get to a league championship series, you're like, oh, well, like you treat it like all of a sudden you're Tom Brady and the Patriots, where it's like, oh, we'll be back. Well, I mean, the Braves won a World Series in mid-90s, and people were like, oh, look at this team they've got put together. Never won another one since that time. And so you get nervous when you're like, hey, it's fine. You didn't cash it in. We'll be back. Kind of like what Falcons fans told themselves after the Patriots, like, we kind of superseded expectations. Matt Ryan and the company got us there. We journeyed to bed sheets late in the game, and Tom Brady got us. It's okay. We'll be back. Nope. Haven't even come close to being back since that time. And I think you need to capitalize on those opportunities. So the mental aspect of knowing you can do it is one thing, but you were 5 outs away from going and seeing where you stack up. And I would have taken my chances with the Tampa Bay Rays all day long with that Braves team, right? I mean, to me, beating the Dodgers was the ticket. you were going into a very nice matchup with the Tampa Bay Rays for a great chance to win a World Series, and it just didn't happen. And that was with a roster that was depleted in the starting pitching and things of that nature, but you were close. And I don't think you just say, well, this team's better. Well, better doesn't mean you're still going back, So I think this team is very, very good, better in some aspects, worse in some aspects than the team in 2020. I think where they got worse might come into play more in a 162-game season, i.e. late bullpen and the bench, than it did in the 60-game season where you could afford to say, hey, we'll just run these dudes out there every single night, give us 4 innings out of the bullpen, and we'll be fine. Can't do that in the 162-game season.
Yeah, maybe, perhaps. And part of that's why I'm a little hesitant with projections like these, but it's also a miracle when you think about the fact that in a 60-game season, in theory, that means that every single start is more valuable, is more dramatic in nature, is more impactful, because if you have a bad start over a 162-game season, you kind of brush it off, you deal with it, you move forward. I mean, the Braves were in a position where every single pitch mattered. Every team in baseball was. And again, you were running out rookies, second-year guys, Robbie Erlin, Tommy Malone, dudes people have never heard of. And I mean that with all due respect. Everybody played a role, man. Robbie Erlin had some starts. I mean, I'm going to give him credit. He helped the Braves win a division title. But at the end of the day, if you're telling me that in a unique environment where every starting pitcher had kind of even more pressure on their shoulders, and the Braves were running out of bodies and they still won the division, and now you're saying, at least on paper, in theory, there are 7 or 8 guys who you would feel comfortable with as probably being the better pitcher regardless of who you're going up against more nights than not. I could see the reason to kind of imply, suggest, or outright say the Braves are going to be better in 2021. But to your point, Kevin, sports has a strange way of kind of anytime you think you got it figured out, it grabs you and says, nope. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm buying in. I'm here, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
Wait, whoa. What? And I'm not talking about Freddie Free. I'm not talking about what would Isaac Alberts know about losing? What would Ronald Acuna know about losing? I mean, that's why it's not good to tell people about the history, because I'm living in it right now. These young guys is coming up. Why do people want to play with the Braves? They can see what's going on. So, I mean, BJ, the last 3 years, what will make you think the Braves ain't going to be good? I mean, what in their recent history will make you think they're not going to compete?
I mean, you want my honest answer, and Kevin's not going to like this.
Yeah.
It's math. Every year you win a division title, that makes it less likely that you're going to win a division title in the future. And you may say, well, the Braves won 14 straight. Right. That was also a generation ago, and you had 3 Hall of Fame starting pitchers. Mm-hmm. What makes me nervous about pro sports is that every year of success, it goes back to Kevin's point about the Atlanta Falcons. Mm-hmm. Outside of outliers like the New England Patriots with the greatest quarterback of all time, or the Chicago Bulls with the greatest player of all time, pro sports with salary caps and inverse draft pick orders and, scheduling kind of counterbalances, pro sports are designed for parity. They are literally created with their rules and their guidelines to promote parity. And though you have outliers, for the most part, I mean, look at the NFL. In the NFL, you can go from 13-3 to 4-12 overnight. Major League Baseball, it wasn't that long ago the Kansas City Royals were in the World Series. It wasn't that long ago the Detroit Tigers were the next big thing. It wasn't that long ago the New York Mets had this unbreakable pitching staff, and they were not only in the World Series, they were going to be there forever. So I trust the Braves. I'm excited about the Braves. I believe in the Braves. Everything on paper points to more. But if you're asking me where my hesitation comes from, it's because in pro sports, nothing lasts forever.
I mean, I'm not talking about things last forever. I just think that what happens is, too, when you have a culture of winning and the core of your team is guys that's in their 20s, you are letting them know this is what that becomes an expectation. Because if you go on a team that is bad, even if you used to winning, that's what your expectation will become. Even if you don't say it out loud, I'm just telling you, winning does things for pros that when you throw in the losing aspect of it. I was with the Raiders, and I didn't think a culture mattered. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? I am telling you, BJ, The thing about Tom Brady is Tom Brady brings a culture with him. He's going to make everybody around him either accept what I'm doing or you won't be out here. Think about that. We might not win, but this is the expectation. Tampa had nothing going on for them. Nothing. A 43-year-old changed the dynamic in 1 year. Doesn't mean they're going to continue it, but that's what he brings with him. If I'm 22 and I'm running LaCunha and people start saying, hey, man, how good are you? Watch what I do. Look at what he did for the team. Look at what he did for Freddie. Freddie Freed no longer has pressure on him to be the guy. And because of that, he won MVP. I don't even got no pressure on me no more. So I just think that when you look at the Braves team, the Braves don't spin like the Yankees do. The Braves don't got the pitching staff like the Dodgers do. And they came 5 outs away of being in the World. I'm just telling you, you have to win your way without looking around your division or what everybody else doing. The Titans are still winning how they done way back because they run the football. I'm just saying, Alex Anthopoulos, don't listen to BJ. He's just mad because he underneath it all, he loves him.
We've got more to come. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you're with us here on the show. If you missed any portion of the show, first off, shame on you. You shouldn't do that. Second of all, you can go to ESPNCoastal.com, catch the podcast version. You can go to our YouTube channel at ESPN Coastal on YouTube and see the show there on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, so many ways to get the show each and every day. Of course, we continue to interact with you on Twitter at Pigskin Radio, as we are kind of in the in-between of college football. A couple of days here. It'll get started back up again on the 20th with some SoCon football this weekend. And then, of course, the draft and all that will carry us through here until football's back with us this summer.
Yeah, I believe you got 3 SoCon games set for this weekend. One may have been postponed, but I believe you have at least a couple on the Saturday schedule. So college football this weekend, folks.
Yeah, college football in March. It's a thing, right? So be able to check that out as well. Appreciate you joining us here on the program. We'll see you tomorrow, a Thursday edition of 3 and Out. Hope you'll join us then. In the meantime, at Pigskin Radio, as I mentioned there on Twitter, you can join in all the fun with us. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We stream live as well, ESPNCoastal.com.